Okay, so this is a start of a series. By that I mean this is my class lesson. I wanted to learn about Minerva Teichart. She is an artist and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and she was an artist while she lived in the 1900s, and she was born in like 1888, I think, but 1900s, 1880 something, around there. And I want to learn about her and tell her story and the story of her paintings. So this first video is just her story, a little bit about her, who she is, and her life, because she is fascinating, at least to me. A little disclaimer, I am not an artist, so if I say something wrong, it is not on purpose. I just feel like my foundation's running out. I just don't know all the correct terminology. I'll try my best. And two, my makeup looks are always something that I could wear out to the store or stuff, because I just don't see the point in a super extravagant look for literally no reason. Um, this makeup look is gonna be super simple. I'll show the picture. It is going to be off of her self-portrait, which is a charcoal drawing, so it may not be the best one, but it's just the first. And so now into it, a little bit about. So it's not really supposed to be a tutorial, so I'm not exactly going to talk you through what I'm doing. I might share some little things, but also if I forget, it's because it's not really a tutorial. About Minerva. So her born name is actually Minerva Kellhop, and she was born in Ogden, Utah, which you think is pretty close, but she was actually raised on a farm that was in, well, where today would be like American Falls, Idaho. So right next door. And she grew up like riding horses. Her horse's name was Jem, which I think is just adorable. And out here, very beautiful landscape. So she grew up drawing the landscape, which her parents strongly supported of her doing. And that's where she got her love of drawing and eventually painting, is from drawing the countryside and the landscape. She ended up going to school in Chicago at the Art Institute. And she finished there like 1912 and came back home to, I'm just gonna say American Falls, even though at the time I don't think that's what it was called. American Falls, where she met Herman. Now, Herman Teichart, in case you didn't guess my last name, becomes her husband, but not yet, was not a member of the church. Now, when I say the church, in case you didn't catch it earlier, I'm talking about her church, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, more commonly known as Mormons or the LDS Church. And so his family was not members. They immigrated from Germany. Is it immigrated? Is that the right word? I think that, yeah, immigrated. I'm right. It's immigrated. They immigrated from Germany. And so they're not members. And neither her parents nor his parents were a fan of this match and did not think they should be together. So much so that Minerva's mom actually told Minerva that the art school she wanted to go to, which is the Art Students League in New York, that her parents would support her, even go as far as, I gotta find a brush. Give me. I'm back. I found my brush. Okay, even went as far as to tell her that they would support her in New York and even help pay some of it. But another family is not exactly the rich people. And so Minerva chose art over Herman, and she went to New York. She, so I'm going to try to lighten up a little bit because my portrait, there's some very contrasting colors, dark and light. I mean, that's all the color, but it's dark and light and it's very contrasting, so I'm going to try to lighten it up a little bit. Um, she chose New York and she fell in love. She is an art girl through and through. She loved operas and concerts. And when her funds ran low, Minerva actually started doing artist paintings and drawings for books. She drew for the medical schools and their books, and she helped illustrated children's books, and that is how she made money. She emerged as a top student pretty quickly and was loved by her professors. People would often question her. I'm just gonna do a light cheek because I like my cheeks done. There's no red in the picture. We're just gonna go with it. Um, Even the people questioned her all the time. Actually, let me pull up the self-portrait. She's very little cheek definition in that portrait. Okay, we're just gonna go with it. Um, People question her all the time, like why she chose art. I don't know. Well, art's often considered not one that you make money on, so people always question her why she would choose that. And she said, "There's too much sagebrush in my blood to forget the branches of the rugged mountains and dry plains." This is from where she's from, Utah, Idaho area. A lot of mountains, and it's a very beautiful landscape. Like I said, she started by painting and drawing the landscape and the countryside. She had a professor, Robert Henry. He was a portraitist, I think is the right word. And he quickly became one of the biggest influences on her art. She actually, to the artist from what I understand, has a recognizable style because she blended his teachings with the large brush is in loose strokes to her drawing frame, as well as the Western sensibilities that she grew up with. Henry was a mentor to her and even became a friend that stuck around her, well, her lifetime actually, for quite a while. And he is actually the person who told her to paint, to share the Mormon story. He asked her if people really drew the paintings and shared those stories in that style, the art style. And she said no. And then she felt that it was her calling to do that. And so that was her plan. But then she went to a church and there was a talk given that influenced her to go home and focus starting on her family. I don't know how much anyone knows about the church, but family is a strong focus. Okay. For this self-portrait, since it is like, I believe they said charcoal, I'm gonna try to do like a shadow eye because I'm not really sure how to tell that story. My next ones will be the story of the paint, so it'll be a little bit colorful. And then dark colors are not my forte, so we'll see how this goes. I'm a little worried. Um, but she went home due to that talk, and as she, I'm gonna use the little mirror because I'm blind. As she went home, she went back with Herman, which from you remember earlier is the one her parents are like, no, you can't marry. And well, she married him, and so married. They had multiple kids, and Minerva loved being a wife and being a mother, and she chose her family consistently throughout her life. and to focus on her family life. With that, she did not stop painting or drawing in any way. It was different though. Dude, these are not even. Eee. This is bad. Okay, so she focused on that. However, she would say that, like I said, she didn't stop. And she would say it was because it was a disease that she couldn't stop. She had to paint. And so in 1927, they were actually forced to move because, the reservoir in America Falls, they were filling that, and little, their farm was in the bottom of that. And so they were forced to move, and so they moved to a ranch in Cokeville, Wyoming. Yeah, Cokeville, Wyoming. And they're actually very excited because this was, 1927. And so the Cokeville, Wyoming home had running water and electricity, which they loved. And Minerva would they had this wall in their home that Minerva was so excited for because at the time murals were really big. I don't know if you know mural, it's a big painting. And she was gonna paint that wall into a massive mural. And she did. So, oh yeah. So because of how big murals are, their house didn't exactly have space for like paper ones, so she'd often have to fold it up and work with it in small little sections. And you know what? Let's pull out some of my palettes. And because of how big it was, she couldn't really get the full picture, so she'd actually use binoculars to maybe not. They should use binoculars to see the full picture by looking through them backwards. So looking in the small side to see the big side. And that's how she would get the full picture. Okay, when Minerva was 39, so not very old at all, she already had white hair. Yeah, she already had white hair. And it was always held back in a headband. Very similar, well, probably not similar to mine, but always held back in a headband to pull it out of her face. And she would always say it was to hold her brains in, which relatable on so many levels. She Cokeville is a very small community. I don't know where you're from. But it's a small community, and so a lot of friends, when she attended funerals, she would always help herself to a bouquet after it. And then a couple of days later, she would present the family of the loss of the mourning family with a la 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 the still life bouquet preserved. That was not the color I wanted. I should have looked. Oh well, we're gonna use it now. And so she preserved them. After a little while, neighbors and friends caught on, and they would actually start delivering the flowers to her doorstep to have these bouquets preserved for them. And she would do it happily. She loved her community and was a very big part of her community for her whole life. Minerva was also widely known as a multitasker. She was also a great talker and would talk to everyone. At least that's what her granddaughter said in a meeting, in an interview, not a meeting. But would, she was a multitasker. She would make her kids dinner, and this I think she had like 3 or 4 kids. And she would make dinner in the middle of stirring, pause and go paint a stroke, and then come back and just work with it. She also She made a thing that when the kids went to sleep, that was her painting time and she could do her stuff. Like, I know it's like the kids are asleep, it's my time. And hers was painting. And so she would set her kids, well, she'd set all of the clocks a little ahead so that the kids would go to bed earlier, so that she would have more time to paint. Now up to the Great Depression, the night after 20s, 1930s, and all that. And during the Great Depression, like most of America, even the world, the Teichharts were struggling financially. And Minerva really wanted to help and wanted to use her art to help. And so she went to Salt Lake City to find an agent. And there she met with Alice Horn. Yeah, it's Alice Horn. So there she met with Alice Horn, who was an art dealer. Now, Minerva seriously showed up to Alice with a mural and basically just said, just look at this. Don't say anything, don't talk to me, just look at this. And so she just pulled off, showed her the mural, and that was it. And literally 2 weeks later, Horn had organized an exhibit of Minerva's literally 2 weeks later, Minerva had an exhibit, and within a few months, she had met with the governor of Utah and had received very enthusiastic reviews from the governor and several. You like my Cheeto ones? The flaming hot Cheeto flushes. Met the governor and received several that's what I'm looking for. Enthusiastic. Several enthusiastic reviews of her work. And so in 1932, the Teichardt's economic situation shifted for the worse. And if you remember, it was already not good. Well, now it was bad. They were going to lose the ranch. And Horn, the art dealer, found several buyers and started selling the paintings and the works, which actually ended up saving the ranch. But fun fact is still in the family. It is currently owned and ran by her grandson, and he lives there with his family. Now back to her story though. And so it ended up saving the ranch. And in the 1930s alone, which I don't know how much you know about American history, 1930s weren't exactly a good time for anyone. Horn actually ended up selling over 60 of Minerva's murals. That's the word. Wow, did I mention I'm not an art major? Minerva's murals, she sold these to schools and to churches and to hospitals. And additionally, she did paint some of the church story, but most of her paintings were the countryside and about her home and the land. And so she sold several. She even made a deal with BYU. So I don't know how much you know, but BYU is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints school, and anyone can attend. But it's their school, they're the ones who own it and operate it. She had a deal with them in exchange murals for scholarships for her kids. And actually, more than just the Teichardts kids actually ended up benefiting from this still. Many of the students in Cokeville used this to go to BYU, which is in Provo, Utah. In case I mentioned that. And so in 1947, Teichart Minerva had risen to really the top of the Mormon art world. She drew, she painted pictures about the migration of the Mormons, as well as scriptural references and art. She won the first prize in the church's centennial art contest, and she was actually the first woman to be invited to paint a mural in the temple. And she actually painted in the Manti Temple, which still stands. And there's a gigantic world room, and it was a 4,000 square foot mural. Huge. And she painted it in just 23 days. She has really dark eyebrows in this, so we're gonna try to replicate that, but I'm really bad at eyebrows, so we'll see. Um, Huge mural, and they actually just redid this temple in the most couple recent years, and they actually have decided to keep this mural, and so that mural is still in the temple today. The original mural that Minerva painted, which I think is so cool. Sorry, my notebook and notes. Here's my mail. I need to organize. Okay, she painted 42 Book of Mormon stories. If you don't know what the Book of Mormon is, I will talk more about it in different videos if I do. It is a scripture that the church believes in. With that, it is not the only scripture the church believes in. They also do believe in the Bible. They believe that the Book of Mormon is the Word of God, and they believe the Bible is also the Word of God, as far as it is translated correctly, as they didn't prove. Anyways, so she painted 42 Book of Mormon stories, and they were claimed to be. Oh my gosh, okay, did I mention I'm really bad at eyebrows? I gotta focus in for a second. I don't think I got those even. Correct. Okay, let's just. We did a little bit lighter than that because, like I said, I like to wear my makeup looks out because I don't see the point in doing it for no reason. If I'm gonna spend the time to do a look, I'm gonna wear the look. Okay, so the Book of Mormon stories are acclaimed and very sought after because they were large enough and simple enough to read at a glance while still telling this magnificent story from the church. And okay, Minerva had really high hopes with her paintings. However, when she started focusing on these murals, no one would buy them. And she actually just kind of declined in the art world. The first big reason, I believe, was because Horn, who was her friend, but also the art dealer who sold her paintings, the agent, passed away. And that was a huge impact on her. And the second was because murals at the time were just kind of going out of favor. There's a switch in the art world to different kinds of paintings. They're much smaller and compact. And so they're just kind of going out of favor. And so they started, just going down. She, however, did not stop painting. She continued to paint for the majority of her life. However, did I mention eyeliner's hard? Because if I didn't, eyeliner's hard for me. Okay. In 1970, she fell from her porch and broke her hip. And she was like 90, 80, 90, 80 years old. Understandable. And there's some reason to believe that a stroke, is this the color I'm looking for? Here it is. I'm just gonna do this little line with white to kind of bring in more of that painted look. There's reason to believe that a stroke caused her to fall, and that's happened. And after she broke her hip, she never painted again and ended up passing away in a nursing home in 1976. However, like most famous artists today, that is when her art really took off. There's something I wants to explain to me. Please do. So that's when her art really took off, and people started to rediscover her, especially in the church community. And so, just 4 months after her passing, a lot of her paintings were used to illustrate a package in the Ensign. And by the way, the Ensign is a magazine published by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that will share different stories and talks and speeches, well, stories and speeches given by church leadership and members. And so a bunch of her paintings were used to illustrate Ensign stories. And then just 2 months after that, she was her profiled in the Ensign. And a lot of her murals started to be pulled from storage and were put back up, and they were even reproduced on the covers of the church's manuals as well as the other magazines they produce. And were being mounted in temples around the world. So in 1988, so 100 years after her birth, hey, I was right. Yeah, in 1988, the Church Museum in Salt Lake, or is it Provo? I think it's Provo, actually. No, Salt Lake. It had a major retrospective exhibit about her. And so that's her story and how she came to be like. This is the look I ended with. It's kind of a shadow eye, but like I said, I don't work well with dark colors. I tried to do the dark eyebrows like her portrait, tried to underline that white to kind of give the painted vibe. I did a little bit of a darker lip because in the picture her lips stand out a little bit to me. So that's Minerva Teichart.